noise!
Welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine. If you enjoy this programming, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Join Truth and Rhythm's membership program through Patreon. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk. Shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. I'm delighted to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership super talented R&B vocalist, composer, and producer Sandra St. Victor, best known as part of the Family Stand. From 1989 to 2010, she recorded several albums with the trio, including the funky hit Ghetto Heaven. Prior to that, she earned her stripes as an in-demand background singer, and during her career has collaborated with stars like Roy Ayers, Chaka Khan, Tawatha Agee, Paula Abdul, Darryl Hall, and Curtis Mayfield. She has also released solo albums and formed a singing all-star collective that performs as the Daughters of Soul. Superstars who have recorded her lyrics include Prince and Tina Turner. Wow, Sandra, thank you so much for joining the show. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, of course.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming. And where are you today?
I'm in the Netherlands, in Arnhem, where I live, my main homestead, in the attic. So I must explain then you see my clothes and outfits and shoe collection and all kinds of stuff behind me right now. So excuse that.
No, well, it looks like sources of inspiration to me.
Well, you know what? Everything at the end of the day it becomes a source of inspiration, one way or another, good or bad.
No doubt. So good to have you. Thank you for making the time to speak to the audience today. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Fantastic. So, Sandra, you're from Dallas, right? What drew you to music and singing in the first place? How did you make that your path?
I think that the path made me, more or less. Yeah, I wasn't looking for something to do. I wasn't looking for someone to be. I wasn't, I just realized one day I was cleaning, I was dusting furniture, and I realized how good it felt to sing. And I was like, I was 8 at that point, and I said, I think I'm a singer. I said that to myself. I said it out loud as I was dusting this lamp in the living room. And that's kind of been my path. And I've never strayed from it, not even for a moment. It's never been a question.
Wow. And did you feel comfortable, doing it in front of people and on stage right from the get-go, or did that take some time?
Yeah, from the get-go, because, how parents are. Sandra K, come in here and sing something for your auntie. So every gathering, I had to sing. And then it became church, of course, singing in a choir, doing solos. So I've been doing solos since I think my first solo at church was 12. Maybe 12, yeah, 11 or 12.
And were there musicians in the family or anything like that?
Actually, yes. And what was so cool because I had the Whitfields, my cousins, um, and every time we'd go over to their house, they had nothing but music. All of the kids played and sang piano and organ. The father actually played saxophone, and every time we go there, there was like a party. It was always like it was just a jam session. And as a little kid growing up, watching that and always feeling too young to be a part of, they were just great, man. It was so dope. And I never, I never joined. I never joined. I just watched, And as I got older and realized that's what I wanted to do, and my cousin, who is Robert Goody Whitfield, actually, he played with the Gap Band, and he played with Natalie Cole, and then he put out. He was signed to a Total Experience, I think it was called, and he put out an album and had a hit song album called Goody's Goody. Can't remember the single, but yeah, he was on Soul Train. So my cousin was on Soul Train, was like doing his song, So that's part of my growing up family. The interesting part, the other side of that, is that I'm adopted. So those are my blood relatives. So I found a whole nother family of music years later when I found out who my family was.
Fascinating. Wow. And who are some of your, early musical heroes? Was there somebody also that maybe you saw perform for the first time and just kind of blew you away?
Earth, Wind, and Fire. My dad took me to see an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert. And yeah, we were front and center. And the whole thing was just amazing to me. I was just like, whoa, and Jesus. Just the coordination of everything. And, I was already into music for myself at that point. So, I was going to music school. So I knew all the technical, I was like, wow, look how they did that. Look at this next chords and this, it blew my mind. And that as far as live is concerned, on recordings, all of Earth, Wind, and Fire, Stevie Wonder. But and Elton John, I love Queen. And then I totally got into jazz at one point, and I was only listening to Ella and Sarah and June Christie, and these voices. I was just into voices at one point. So I've definitely my tastes, pretty much run the gamut as far as genres are concerned, and they all have become a part of me. All of that, of course, always makes up who you end up, forming into. You just get into your own bag, really.
And, what was the group or point where you felt like, I think I can make a go of this career-wise?
Probably in high school. High school, grew up in Dallas, Texas. And I went to the high school, Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing Arts. Also, Roy Hargrove went there. Edie Brickell and Nora Jones and Erykah Badu all came out of that high school. So there, I pretty much knew this is it for me. Yeah, this is kind of much. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. And it was, it was probably, looking back at it, it was probably too easy for me in high school. It's not like one stuff all the time, and got solos a lot of the time, and so when you have a childhood, like a teenagehood, that seems so easy. When you get out into the real music business, you realize, oh shit, this shit ain't like that work. You gotta bust your butt out here for real. So I had to learn, from the ground up, as we all do. Once you get out there, school ain't shit. Okay, when you get out there, you got to do it. So the experience is the real school.
And what about your, aspirations? Did you think you would go as a solo act, as part of a band, or background singing?
And I always knew I wanted to be an artist, because I decided that actually also early on. After high school, I had a full scholarship, music scholarship, um, to Kansas University, because the music department there was trying to build up, and they came down there and recruited folks, and I was the one they recruited from my school. And I was there for like a year in their department, in their music department. They were trying to build up their jazz department. It was not there yet, so it was still focused on the classical pieces, which I also love classical music, by the way. But I knew that I didn't want to be a classical artist at that point. I decided that, and then also decided I didn't want to be a jazz singer because I wanted to write. I knew I needed to write. I didn't want to sing hundreds-year-old songs for the rest of my life. I didn't want to, oh, we're going to do the habanera this week. This y'all will be doing the, I just didn't, the La Boheme. They're beautiful. And I like to listen to them. I like to sing them. But I didn't want a career of just, going through the cycle of, the classics forever. That made me decide that I have to be an artist writing my own music.
And how did you cultivate, composing?
Oh, wow. Sitting in my room as a kid writing songs and having my brother laugh at me. Yeah, I mean, because I used to, I played piano, I wrote songs on piano later, but before I really started writing on the piano, I was just, singing melodies and write little poems. And then because of Barry's White, I got a kalimba. And so I started writing songs, thinking I was doing something. And my brother used to come in there and be like, bling, I'm queen of the Nile, bling. He was just make terrible fun of me. My lyrics weren't, I'm queen of the Nile, right, by the way, but that's what he got out of, the depth of what I was trying to portray. So, but yeah, I kind of just started writing poetry, putting melodies to it, and then eventually moving to the piano and coming up with stuff.
Yeah. So what kind of subject matter did you tend to gravitate toward in terms of your composing?
Self-identity, Blackness, always from the beginning. I was definitely I was wearing dashikis and shit, at that point already, so my dad thought it was weird. But yeah, it was pretty much, I think I had at that time, one love song, because I was really discovering that really. I had a song called Here I Go. And it's like the lyrics of Here I Go, that old feeling, life is love, but they say that life is killing, but life is love, but this love is killing, those are the lyrics. Okay, but it was my first love song. So, and the rest of it was, just about being yourself and being who you are and finding your, embracing you. Those are the lyrics. Most of the lyrics of everything else I wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you say your first big break was Roy Ayers?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was with a band called Laissez Faire with an artist, guitar player named Zachary Bro. And we were doing traveling in Texas and Louisiana, back and forth over the border, and that's how we ran into Roy. And Roy offered me a gig, and I moved to New York. So he's the one that got me to New York. Uncle Roy took me on the road. Yeah.
How familiar were you with his music at that time?
I was very familiar because I used to sit there and vibe on his stuff. So at that point in my life, it felt like that before the words were known as they are today. I felt like it was intention. I would focus on things, not trying consciously to bring stuff to me, but intentionally I was vibing on that music a lot. I was drinking it in, I was absorbing it, and then he shows up. And at the after that, I started vibing on Chaka Khan and Rufus, and Chaka shows up at a Roy Ayers show, and then we start talking and we vibe. So, it felt like, when I focus on something, it comes, it appears. It's the naivete of youth, but I think there is a little seed of truth in there.
Yeah, visualize it and make it real.
Yeah, yeah. With proper motive, I think it's not about, trying to like, oh, I'm gonna bring, it's just the purity of really wanting to, or really enjoying something. The purity that I enjoyed listening to Roy Ayers albums was not about, I never thought I would meet Roy Ayers. I wasn't thinking I'd meet Roy Ayers. I was just there, sitting on the floor because I didn't have a bed at the time. Sitting on the floor, listening to his records, and wow, going back and going, this is the 70s. So this is the 80s already. And all of his greatest shit was in the 70s. So I had to teach myself all of that stuff. And whoa, you get into somebody's cast, you just go down a rabbit hole of somebody's catalog. And yeah, the energy is of course thick when you're that deep off into something.
Do you remember your first performance on stage with Roy Ayers and his band?
Oh, wow. What was the first one? It's probably Blues Alley. I think it was Blues Alley, because I remember, standing in front of his house, Zachary and I, because he took Zachary and I up. And they were loading the van, and Zachary was like, so how much we getting paid? I'm like, I don't know. You don't know? No, we didn't even know how much we were getting paid. And we were getting ready to go out with Roy Ayers. You ask, I'm not going to ask him. You ask him. He likes you more. You ask. So then we drove to DC. So it was Blues Alley. I'm trying to remember if I remember that actual show, but I know it was Blues Alley.
How old were you about?
I was 18. Just a few years back, a couple of years back.
Yeah. I understand. So how much time did you end up spending with Roy?
So that was, let me shock. So that was 82, 83. I felt like I was with him longer than that. I think I was with Roy for 82, 83. Yeah, because then I got with Chaka in 84. Yeah. So it's about maybe 2.5 years, something like that.
So what would you say are one or two of the lessons you learned that helped you moving forward in the business and in your career from that first Roy Ayers experience?
Wow, there's so many lessons. I think if I have to narrow down like two, maybe one would be, of course, being clear and consistent with your craft. And when we're doing Roy Ayers and doing Chaka Khan, well, all of those gigs where I was like side man, your craft, your job at that point is to support them. So when I'm with Roy, I want to support the records that people come to hear. So that means, okay, there's who are the female vocals? There's Dee Dee Bridgewater, there's Chicas. I think there's a couple of them, but I wanted to know what it was about their thing that made that record work, for Roy, with Roy. But at the same time, I want to bring my own interpretation to it. So that's a craft. It really is, and with Yvette, with Chaka, she sang all of her background vocals. So if you're going to be on stage with Chaka Khan singing background, you have to sound like Chaka Khan. So I had to teach myself, because I was really more of a jazzy vocalist and teach myself to, okay, let's wail. Let's do this siren shit, So, I took on that. I tried to emulate the siren sound of her stacked background vocals. That's craftsmanship. So you have to know your job and study, so to be the best that you can be, and then take it beyond so you can take something from it for yourself. That's just one thing. The other thing I would always say is know the business. Know the business. Know whatever business you're getting into. And the problem I was talking about this with a musician yesterday is, of course, we would all do it for the love, But and people will take advantage of that. And they have. That's what they do. That, everybody knows that. And people get taken in by the excitement of somebody digging and getting you. And maybe that person really does dig and get you, but it's a business. So if that person is thinking more business-like than you, guess who's gonna get more, advantage out of this thing financially and otherwise? Probably not you. So you really do have to just slow things down, because ain't nothing that has to happen right now. You got to do this right now. Yo, none of that is true. That's bullshit. You can always say, well, okay, well, I'll get back. Go back, research whatever you got to do, ask questions, talk to somebody, who people you trust, or whatever legally you need to do. But you could always take that moment and step back. There ain't nothing that has to happen right now. I'm sure there's a gazillion lessons I'll think of after we hang up.
Well, those are excellent ones. Sage advice for sure. And Sandra, you got to know, Chaka Khan is my favorite female singer of all time. I profess it on the show all the time, and
no doubt.
just love her.
No, we all.
How did you feel when you first got intimate exposure to that voice and that talent?
I was flabbergasted, really, because you hear stuff on the radio, and the songs. Of course, I love the songs and her voice, no thing. But when I put on, I think the first album that I got of hers was Ask Rufus, and when I heard her sing "Rolling Through the Rushes," an Egypt song, and what's the other one on that album? That's
Everlasting Love.
No, not what hit. Brown, what's it called? It's there are 3 songs that killed me on that album. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I know Hollywood, I know At Midnight, but you're talking about that sort of
Ask Rufus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one that more of the esoteric songs where I really connected with her soul. I said, okay, this is her. That's her. God damn. Man, she heavy. So, and then it's like I could connect a spirit with that voice. That's where all that freedom, that's where all that openness comes from. That's where all of that, just soaring belief in self and life, that's all in her voice. And that took me away, that really took me away. And I was like, ain't nobody like that. There's just nobody sings like that. You can imitate her all day, but you can't be that. And she's a one-off.
And so the year you got with her was what? Because I'm trying to think of where she was in her career.
Yeah, it was. I think we met in '83, and the first tour I did with her was the I Feel For You tour. So yeah. So it was '83, '84.
Yeah, so that was a renaissance for her with that hit. Yeah, at that time.
Absolutely. Things changed overnight. Everything was different. So it was. I've seen her go through several of these transformations at this point. But that was definitely one of them. Watching her blossom.
What were those shows like for you?
Well, we're again we're getting to know each other then, and she's really trying to navigate this newfound superstardom, you know. So the shows were wild for her too. She's is used to doing shows. Obviously, she's been touring for years, but these particular shows with the numbers, audience numbers, was like, okay, I've never been on this stage with these kind of numbers. But hell, she had almost not been there by herself. She'd been there with Rufus with festivals and all this sort of thing. But as just Chaka Khan, this was next. This was the next thing. So it was really like being at the beginning of almost like you said, a renaissance. It was being at the beginning of that. It was interesting to be a part of that. And enjoy her enjoying that.
Yeah, and she parlayed that into the Steve Winwood stuff and all kinds of interesting projects.
Yep. Very interesting. And also the song with Bruce Hornsby, and she did some really cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Yeah.
So, and I certainly hear her influence coming through, your singing. So whatever, you say you were not really a Chaka, I don't want to say clone, but
right.
you weren't that, but you took that in and ever since then, I think it, comes through in what you do in certain, stylistic things, and that ain't a bad thing at all. So,
I hope not, because it's like, it is a part of what I do now. Who I am. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I very much appreciate it. So, I mean, when I first heard you, I was like, well, I definitely hear some Chaka influence, which is great for me. So, yeah.
Cool.
So you ended up being with her about how long? And some of these other people like Paula Abdul and Tawatha, was that concurrent or was that after? Or what was the?
I was doing background work in the studio, background work as well at the same time, because when I got there, when I got to New York, Brenda, who introduced me to Brenda? I think Lisa Fisher introduced me to Brenda. I had met Lisa when I still lived in Texas before I even got with Roy Ayers, when I was with this other band. She was singing with the Crystals, that iteration of the Crystals touring around. And so we kept bumping into each other. We, it was fun. We had fun. So when I moved to New York, she said, well, I can hook you up with some session people. So she hooked me up with Brenda White King, and Brenda started taking me on sessions. So that's where I met the whole session group. Brenda, Tawatha, Cindy, Audrey, So that was about the same time that I was also doing, I was going out with Roy, and then after that going out with Yvette. And when I was home, I'd do sessions and little gigs here and there. And then I go on tour. It's kind of what we all did back then. I forgot the question.
Did you also do studio with Chaka or just shows? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was it like, the studio experience with her?
Oh, amazing. It's like, that was so much fun. We had, yeah. Well, again, there was my favorite experience, song recording experience was Tight Fit, because it was just her and I in the studio. And, with stacking vocals, and I do a note, she do a note, I do a note, and then we did some stuff together. And when we got back in the booth, they were, singling out the things, the EQ, singing out each track. And it was like, was that me or you? Oh no. Wait, was that? Wait. Well, I think that was me. I think that was you. That was just fun, But we had a lot of fun times in the studio, watching Arif Martin at the board with a gazillion vocal tracks, and everybody had their process. Russ Titleman had his process, and it was an amazing experience to be in a studio with those kind of cats. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it was dope. It was definitely dope. I don't know how else to. Yeah.
I just had Steve Ferroni, drummer, on,
Oh yeah.
and he was in some of the sessions. He was talking about Arif and Chaka, and he said that they would, lay down a lot of the tracks, and then
Yeah.
usually Chaka might come in, and she would have an interpretation, and they would all change to accommodate that because, when she did her thing.
Oh, you gotta support that. That's what you got to do. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she would. I know Reef would have her sing down like 50 times, and he would record all of it. So they were all good, and I'd be like, "Damn, that was great. She gonna do it again? Wow, okay." And I mean, I just to imitate him. I used to imitate Reef because I forgot about that. Because she would finish a perfect track, and he would go, "Perfect, do it again." And it's like, "Perfect, do it again." And it was like, I was like, "Perfect, do it again." Okay, perfect, do it again. And she just sang it down and blasted away again, and maybe the different little turn, little twists here, a little inflection that she didn't do on the last one. And then he would take like a little piece. He would take an inflection on that note, and then put it with the rest of this word. He would just. I'm like, the hell does he even know that the G, in the word, fling is over there, and the rest of the word fling is over there. He's like, okay, I want the G of fling, and the rest of the word, and it was insane to watch. An insane process. I've never seen anybody as meticulous as him, as Arif Martin in the studio.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's a master for sure. Yeah.
Ooh, he's more than a master. Yeah. He was a master teacher too. Yeah, because his son Joe became really good at productions.
Wow. Well, it's not easy to give me goosebumps, but Shaka's done it many times, especially when she really opens up and just does that,
Yeah, when it goes all out there, yeah. She can, I tell her all the time, those early recordings, how she sang, from where she sang, are the most purest, vocals that I know of on record. Certainly in the modern era. She just came from a place that was so unadulterated, so so free. And that place is not touched on enough with vocalists now. I think. I think people sing to impress and to be perfect, and sing to show off skills, and sing to have a hit record, whatever. You don't hear that when you listen, to Better Days. You don't hear that when you listen to Your Smile, or those songs where she sounds like a grown ass kid in a grown ass candy store. And she has her choice of feelings to emote, and she can emote it at any moment, at any time, pull them up from wherever she feels the need naturally. That place, to sing from that place is the dream.
And we're going to need to move on and talk about, you've done so much, but in some of the discussions I've had about her too, just some of the unique nuances that she does, unlike anybody else, like just the way she enunciates R's, and things like that, and just the phrasing is just off the chart.
Yes. Her phraseology is unique, and it's it also comes from her influences. She listens to jazz, and she loves jazz, and she loves Joni Mitchell. So like those R's, sometimes you hear the R, it's sort of Joni-esque in her delivery. But she's an amalgamation of things of her influences, as we all are. but with that unique voice that is just her.
Yeah. Yeah. When incredible God-given talent meets everything else.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Wow. So how did you roll into the Family Stand?
I started Lisa Fisher again. Lisa was doing Peter and Jeff were writing songs for other artists, and Lisa was singing the demos for them. And when she was beginning to go on the road a lot with Luther, I think it was Luther that, yeah, it was before the Rolls. It was Luther Vandross. She asked me to, fill in singing these demos for Peter and Jeff for their production, situations. So I did that. And we really vibed together, it was like almost an immediate musical click. They were going to do an album, a production album, like a Quincy Jones with a bunch of different features on it. And they had that deal already in place with Atlantic Records. So they had some singers lined up. So we started, recording my song or songs that I was going to do on this project. And we just ended up doing the whole album together, right? Just a whole album's worth of stuff. So then they took me to the label and said, we just want to be a group. We don't want to, like, what? It was like really kind of how it played out. So that's, that's the short version of it, but we just ended up being a group because of the click was so natural and so, and so on point. We really love what we created together.
And how did the name come about?
Well, we were Yvonne Jeffries and The Stand before, which was, so this is Peter. Peter takes full credit for it. I'm not charging him. He already says, I know that was on me. Yeah, I know. Like Yvonne, it was Peter's mother's name. And then Jeffries was for Jeff. And then because I was a big Stephen King fan, and I think I was reading the book The Stand at the time, then I was The Stand. I was like, this is so stupid. But okay, that was Peter's whole idea. So they put, if you notice, we still use the halo over the ST of Stand for Saint. So that was how, so it was Yvonne Jefferson Stand. And then we did the first album, and every interview that we did, the journalists would always refer to me as, so Yvonne, I'm okay. The time I had to take out of every interview to explain that name, what I just explained to you, why Yvonne, why Jim, why SD, why, and then my name is actually Sandra. I'm not even, it just, I say, I don't want to, can we not? And so Merlin Bob, who was the A&R at Atlantic at that time, VP of A&R, she said, why don't you just change to the Family Stand? And we're like, okay. When he was like, we have to take a vote, it was like, okay, fine. Yes. Now that means now we're forever, lobbed next to the Family Stone. It's like, okay, no, they're the Family Stone. We're the Family. We're not the Family Stone. So, to have their success, hey, but
well,
no,
then they could have jumped to the conclusion also that you all had the last name Stand.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we got the last. That's right. Yes, Sandra Stan, Peter Stan. That's a good one. I should have thought of that back in the day.
I remember when I first, saw the album, and I immediately thought of, of course, what you just mentioned, Sly and the Family Stone, that would be an influence in the name. So it sounds like maybe it wasn't so much.
Well, it wasn't, no, certainly not consciously. I mean, Merlin Bob said the Family Stand, and we were like, fine, great. And we love, and fucking worship everybody in that, period should worship Sly and the Family Stone for what all of they did, everything they did for the music business, the industry, for, all praise due, so I ain't mad. I was never mad at the, at the mix up, but So if you Google Family Stand now, you'll get a lot of Family Stone. But you know what you also will get? You will get a lot of stuff from the UK, because I believe at football stadiums they have something called the Family Stand, where people maybe the family section of the stadium for the players. So there's something called the Family Stand in sports in the UK. So you get that a lot. It's like, what is that?
Well, I guess maybe it was fortuitous to avoid further confusion that Prince's The Family protege group was not still around by the time they just were the one and done. And so, yeah.
But I thought they came out. Didn't they come out when did they come out? It was late 80s?
Like 85 was that one album
Oh,
they did.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but man, what a great album, and for all intents and purposes, I guess there was, some records with your bandmates before that, but that record seemed to be a debut, to me, and
Yeah, to most people.
very impressive,
Thank you.
Yeah. Were you surprised when that single took off like it did?
For sure. Yeah. You don't expect it. You hear it on the radio, and all of a sudden you're sitting next to Donnie Simpson, it's like, what is happening? Oh, your dad is showing you off at the grocery store. Now, that's my daughter. She that singer from the, Dad walked around with a cassette in his back pocket all the time. It's very
As he should.
No, that was dope. That was fun.
To what extent did you tour on that?
Not as much as we wanted to, for sure. They let us do a few things without a band, which is not really, it's not conducive to our full thing. But the problem actually was that the song that became the hit was the remix, the Soul to Soul version. And Soul to Soul was very big at that time. And the rest of our album was really rock soul. Okay, soul rock, how are we gonna put that? A funk rock. And so you got this Soul to Soul vibe, and you got a funk rock album. So, we had to almost train our audiences, because people come in there for Ghetto Heaven, like, what is this shit? And, so we weeded out the people that were only there for Ghetto Heaven, thought we would, if they think we're from the UK, some offshoot of Soul to Soul. We weeded those folks out pretty early and garnered a fabulous base of folks that came for that funk soul thing. So those folks were real. Those shows were like lines around the block, and sold out all the time. Those were great.
Who are some of the acts that you shared a bill with?
Larry Graham's Station. It's the first one that comes to mind because that was great. The tour, we had a lot of fun on this tour. It's also a weird bill, but we opened up on several shows for in the States with Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. So, they didn't come for that. They came for reggae, and then they getting us up there, banging our heads. And then we did a European tour opening up for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Henry Rollins Band. Oh. So that was awesome.
Those are some definitely interesting bills,
Right, yeah.
I'm fans of all those guys too, though. So,
oh, dope, man. Those shows are like, standing. Because I was fans of Ziggy, and I was fans of the Chili Peppers. So we do our set, and I couldn't wait to go to side stage and watch them do their thing, man. It's like, damn, stop. Just watching them kill it every night, man. One show we did one bill that definitely did not work. It was only a one show. Somebody booked us on a gig in the UK. I think it was a theater called Brighton something, or in Brighton. Opening up for, I think it was Chuck D and some rapper. It was like three rappers. I'm like, why are we opening up there? It's just like, it didn't work. We're like, boo! Like, get out of here. You don't hear that. So, that was not a fun show, but a fun experience looking back.
Do you manage to not let it feel personal when that happens?
No, I feel very personal in the moment. We had to stop our guitar player because Ronnie Drayton is like, he was black belt, man. He wanted to jump down and beat somebody. I'm like, yo, Ronnie, right. It's cool. Let's just do the show. Let's do the show. They were just all through. I said, let's just do the show. Let's finish the show. We cut it a little short, but it was like, woo, that was brutal.
But Ronnie was in your touring band?
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome player. Rest in peace.
Yes. My brother from another. Yeah, man. Yeah, he and Mooney Pusey were, we had both of them at one point and one other a lot of times. And they both left us in the past couple of years. We lost both of them.
Yeah, that's one thing, especially doing this show. Just, as we lose these great people, it just really gets to me, especially if I haven't had a chance to have them on and help, spread the word and preserve these legacies. And
I agree. I appreciate it. It's so appreciate. Let me say that to you right now. What you do is preserving history that otherwise, where is it preserved? You need to have these documented conversations with people that are true to this art and real for us, and to have folks appreciate that and care enough to reach out and want to put some light on it, shed some light on it is a blessing. I appreciate you for that.
It's my honor. And, so good to have folks like you too, because I feel that you're definitely a person that, upholds the truth and rhythm, philosophy throughout your career. So
that's the goal. That is the goal.
So how did you feel, what was the thought process, going in for that second record with The Family Stand?
Well, we wanted to almost obliterate the notion that we were soul-to-soul offshoots. So we wanted to, we had been doing these live shows. We knew what the audience loved that we did on stage. They loved it when we rocked out with that funk bass. And it was obvious after doing all the shows who we really were, because before we were just in the studio, we came up with this funk rock thing in the studio, which worked out. But live, it was even more because, you got, again, Ronnie Drayton, y'all taking us there. And so it really did evolve. So we went into the studio with that energy. That's the energy we took in the studio. So we came up with Moon and Scorpio because that's what we were. We was basically just off tour into the studio. And I think for me, Moon and Scorpio, Moon and Scorpio is the penultimate Family Stand piece, because it really does. It showcases all of our sensibilities. So I'm even doing some of my Sarah Vaughan stuff on Where Does Mommy Live. I'm all of the stuff that we are, all the Beatles, Jeff with the solo horn stuff, and we had it all in there, and that's a lot for just a public who that's the band that did Ghetto Heaven, and they put this record on. They get wow, hair it's flying back. So we did obliterate those that thought we were so. We did. And and they never really put us back on tour. They didn't even have the records in the stores. So, they kind of killed us.
They didn't know where to slot you, that same old story.
I used to go to record stores, Tower Records, and take our records out of the R&B second section and put it in rock. because it's not R&B. And there was no like, there was it. R&B, rock. There was no funk. It was just R&B, rock.
Yeah, and R&B itself was so narrowly niched at that point.
Yes, it was very, very narrow. So we weren't Babyface anywhere near. I love Babyface, but we weren't Babyface. So, it's like, why is this record over there? I would just go move them. Physically move them.
Well, even like at that point, almost bands became sort of like counter to R&B at that point.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It was about the machine.
Yeah. So, yeah. The album definitely, struck me just much rockier, much more dynamic, much more ambitious.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't, we knew it was an ambitious project. We honestly, I never looked at it as a masturbatory, thing for us. We weren't just trying to get off. We were being true to ourselves. And that's who we were. We knew we had just left the stage. That's who we are. So we got to record it.
And was the label saying we need a Ghetto Heaven too?
Of course. We don't have that. We don't have the first one because the first one was remixed by Soul to Soul, if you want to be honest. We don't have that. So, the thing that became famous is, it's a good song, but our version of the album is more us.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.